So welcome to Chatting with Virgil. Going to show you guys veteran story. His name is Bill. He's going to give an in-depth of his story when he was at the war. I was at the memorial service that they had this morning, and I thought I'd figured to take that piece and show it to you guys. I didn't interview him, so do take a look and stay tuned. I'll see you guys soon. Do subscribe and like. Thanks.
Come up, Bill Woodrow. You got it, George. So we have a young man because he actually went in about the same, not the same time, many years apart, but he went in right after he graduated from high school, 1970. Redwood High School. Who knows what Redwood High School is? If I tell you, everybody knows. Oh. Yeah. So, Bill, you said that you it said that you volunteered to join this, or did they draft you?
No, I was very fortunate. I tell civilians that in February 10th of 1971, I received a letter from the President of the United States that started with greetings.
Greetings. Who remembers those words, greetings? As we know, Vietnam was a draft war. It did start that way, but it ended up that way, where if you got one of those notices or letters, I never got one. I went in, was too young, I was 17. Was it a letter or a card?
No, it was a letter, and then there was an accompanying letter that I always remember that it stated, no clothing need to be brought. It will be provided at a future time.
Well, Bill, I remember that when I went to the recruiter, no one would take me because I was 17, and the Navy said, we have a place for you, and I said, well, I don't even have a bag to carry anything, luggage, and he said, you don't need any. We'll give you everything. And I couldn't believe that. I said, well, how to do that? But anyway, it's a long story, Bill. You took your training. Were you aware you were going to Vietnam?
No, not at the moment. I mean, I had basic at Fort Lewis, Washington, and then AIT in Georgia. But then in Georgia, I quickly realized all our classes were being shipped to Vietnam, so I anticipated that after that.
What did you mean by draftee platoon?
I was in a draftee platoon, and I was very blessed. There was a man that changed my life and probably saved my life, a guy named Sergeant Rodriguez. Sergeant Rodriguez was a 2-combat tour veteran, and I'll never forget on a Sunday morning he came into our barracks, because we were the draftee platoon. They had us segregated by that, and he always gave us hell because he said, sorry son of a guns, would even join my army. But I always remember on that Sunday morning, he came in, we immediately went to attention, drill sergeant on the floor, and we thought, man, he's going to give us a break here. But he called us down to the end of that World War II barracks and very quietly took his drill sergeant hat off, standing all about 5'4". And then he said some words I'll just share briefly, and I'll never forget it though. He looked at us and he said, I'm looking at dead men. And then he repeated it quietly. I'm looking at dead men. And then he explained to us what we could expect when we arrived in Vietnam. And he explained to us that what he was trying to do was to try to keep us out of a body bag. And I realized then the seriousness of the situation we were in. And that man, a man who admitted he never graduated high school, he wasn't much, let's say, to look at, not a commanding figure, but a man that was fearless, because when we did, especially learning hand-to-hand combat training, he took on our platoon leader, who was very upset because he was drafted from Puerto Rico, which is not a state, but you could be drafted. And that big, tall kid charged our drill sergeant with his pugo stick. He was going to teach that sergeant a lesson. Sergeant Rodriguez, all 5'4" of them, didn't even flinch. and it was over in about 15 seconds. And that guy was on the ground in the rain, unconscious. And Sergeant Rodriguez said with just one quiet word, looked at our platoon and said, "Next." And the whole platoon stepped back in union. It was almost like one of those comical things. But I realized later that his input helped me become a soldier, and I'm always eternally grateful for him. Sometimes we forget that heroes sometimes have a certain image, but heroes come in all shape and size and form. And that man, 5'4", no education, who was on chronic pain pills because of his combat injuries, he's one of the greatest heroes I ever had the pleasure of meeting.
That's really, really good to hear on the background because Vietnam veterans, some of their memories are not very good, folks. Especially a war lasting 16 years. It's just amazing. Bill, what do you remember about going over there and coming back? Was it any time that it felt like you were happy there? Or maybe I shouldn't say that, but what did you feel?
Well, I remember the first night at the Cameron replacement depot in Cameron Bay, that Cameron Bay, Maine came under attack across the bay from us. I was in the replacement depot. And I remember all of us were looking out there as we were seeing Cameron Bay being hit. And you saw those red and green tracers going off, the incoming rounds there. And not a word was said in our little barracks. I mean, it was just absolutely deathly silent because now, we were in the real deal. And like I said, I was very fortunate. I never was wounded in Vietnam, just scared. I spent my last, 6 weeks down by Da Nang at Marble Mountain, and down there nobody was getting killed. And I was very blessed to be there. I will say though, I did have a tough time on. You asked about afterwards, or when I came home. Like all of us, I know you brothers. We came into Travis Air Force Base, and they bussed us down into the San Francisco National Airport. And yes, we were in uniform because that's all the clothes we had. And that's immediately when some things kind of went sideways for us a little bit. There were people there, and they picked up garbage from the street. They started throwing it at us. And one of my guys, his name was McCormick, he lunged at a guy, and I grabbed him because I said, "Mac, we just got back from Vietnam. We can't go into the brig already. We want to have a good time." And but on the upside of that, very briefly, is that Mac and I, then we go to a bar, right, guys? A bar. Get there at the San National Airport, and we're going to order a cold beer, right? Cold, clean beer with cold glasses. I mean, this is going to be great. And so we order it, and then the bartender looks at us, and he looks at us again, and he says, "I need some identification." So Mac leans over to me, he said, "Well, Bill, we've been gone a year. They must have changed something." So I said, "Well, I'm Bill Goodrow," and I can't remember Mac's first name. He identified himself. Then he looked at us and says, "What's wrong with you guys? I didn't know if you're 21 or not." And then it dawned on us like a thunderclap. We'd both been drafted. We were both 19 and 1 month old when we got drafted. We were both still 20. So he couldn't serve us. And he was a World War II veteran. He felt really bad about that. He said, "I can't serve you guys. I mean, I need this job." And then he looked at us. We were kind of brown and lean, kind of haggard looking. And he said, "You just get back from Vietnam, did you?" I said, No. We've been back about 5 hours. And then for some reason he looked at me and said, "Soldier, what have you had cold in a year?" And I grew up on a dairy farm west of Isaiah. Without thinking, I said, "Well, I haven't had any milk." So he slams the bar, runs to the back, and Mac leans over to me again and said, "Man, this has been a rough morning here. What'd you say to that guy?" I said, "I just said I had any milk. I don't know, man." And next thing I know, he's coming at us with something white in a pitcher, 2 frosted beer glasses, slams it down in front of us and pours it and said, "Boys, it's on the house." Which was probably better for us milk than cold beer.
Bill, so you're coming home and you're already so something. I remember a thing that happened in your life at COS coming back. Do you want to relate on that? That's pretty sad for you.
Yeah, that was a little tough. I was at college of Sequoia. I was at a party, and I was flirting with this girl. And she looked at me and realized I was older than just being out of high school. So she started asking, "What'd you do after high school?" And I was a little intoxicated, just a little. And I said, well, I worked for the government for a while, which was true. And she kept asking me gentle questions about that. And finally I admitted I'd been in the Army. Finally I admitted I went overseas. Finally I admitted I went to Vietnam. And then she asked again when I said something about Vietnam. I said it louder, and the damn record skipped when I said Vietnam. And the hostess heard that, came immediately over and confronted me, said, what'd you say about Vietnam? I said, whoa, man, I said, I'm not trying to have any problems here. I'm not making any problems. She goes, what'd you say? What'd you mean about Vietnam? I said, well, I was there. And that's when she told me, she looked at me right in the eyes with as much hatred as I think one human being could muster and said, you get the hell out of here. So I did an about face, and I left.
Yes, folks, those are some of the scenarios that we have been through, and sometimes it'll stay with us the rest of our lives. Jim, how did you get involved? Bill, how did you get involved with the honor flights? This is the reason we asked you here also, is because we heard the word free.
All my veteran brothers, we're good. We're good on that, aren't we? No, I was involved. My wife, we were involved in something called the Spirit of 45, and we were at a meeting in San Diego where we met Earl Morris, the man who founded Honor Flight, a physician assistant out of the Cincinnati VA, and they premiered a movie called Honor Flight: One Last Mission with Honor. If you haven't seen it, please do. It's available out there. Once again, it's called Honor Flight: Last Mission with Honor. And after meeting Earl, we were very inspired to hopefully we'd serve in that capacity. My wife's name is Janet. We did. We went on the very first honor flight out of Fresno, and it was all World War II veterans. And God bless those brothers. I mean, those men, some of them are so ill, they literally crawled up the steps to go to those flights, and we had the privilege of taking them there. I think there was some 72 World War veterans on that first honor flight. And then my wife and I have been on, after that, we've been on 28 of the 30 flights. We were asked to come back as in leadership position. We both serve on the board. And it's been my greatest honor and privilege to serve, especially my fellow brothers, because one thing, those of you brothers have went, and those that you will go, you'll see one thing, and I can assure you that America's caught up with us. And that's what Honor Flight gives, that affirmation of service, because we can't change the past, but what we can do is look at our futures in a new way. We can reframe our service knowing one thing, that it was honorable then, honorable now, and always will be honorable, and that's what Honor Flight brings, is that sense of healing, that sense of appreciation, and it's been my sincere and humble honor to be a part of it.
Bill, could you invite the ones that know that they heard about the honor flights but aren't too aware of what they need to do?
Yes, you can go on to the Honor, great question, you can go on the Honor Flight website. That's centralvalleyhonorflight.org, and you can print out a paper application or enroll online or come and see me after the service. I mean, Honor Flight, we just had this last Honor Flight, that was Honor Flight number 30. We had 70, there were 68 of my fellow Vietnam vets. In fact, that's how I hurt my arm. I was the trip leader, and I tripped at the damn airport. What a moron. Anybody can be a trip leader, I guess.
Can you tell them the cost and who they can take?
Thank you, George. Yeah. The cost of you brothers is free, because you already purchased the ticket long ago. If you have a guardian that volunteers to go, we need guardians to keep our brothers safe. That's approximately $1,200 for them. And of course, very often, if it's a relative, we have the veterans paying for their son or grandson or granddaughter for that fee. Honor Flight, by the way, is completely nonprofit. We're tax deductible charity. And if you like, you're more than interested to know, when people sometimes ask me when I speak at different groups, there's no salaries. No salaries involved in Honor Flight. Even our president of the board, Paul Leffler, with all the countless hours that he serves, there are no salaries. So you donate to Honor Flight, and that's centralvalleyhonorflight.org. You please look that up. You can be assured of one thing: your donations are going completely to the cost of those flights.
Bill, one thing that stuck out for me was that one of the members was elated. He was going to go on this honor flight. And my
No, the wives cannot go. And we've got some pushback about that. But the reason for that is not that we're discriminatory against the spouses, but if we have a spouse go, that's one less veteran that can go. And very often the spouses are the same age or approximate age of the veteran. And especially with World War II, then that would mean we had two personnel that we had to safeguard. So the only exception to that is like in the World War II couples, we had many that were the wife, she was a veteran too. So she got to go just because of her fact that her being a veteran established her ability to go on an honor flight. The other exception is it's a VA recognized caregiver, and we've had two of those, two wives have gone because they're being paid by the VA to be the caregiver of their husband.
Okay, folks, ready. As I get it, is that it's a medical thing. Our Vietnam veterans are all over 70. As you can remember, I mentioned that some are going through cancer treatments, but they're still going on this trip. And if you have, say, a wife of the same age, and he gets very sick, you need to have a young person that can take care of him while you're walking around the malls or wherever you go to see sightseeing. Bill is I'm just amazed what you do because I've been a volunteer since I arrived here in 1971, and I haven't stopped. Even my wife told me to stop, but I haven't stopped yet. I volunteer for a lot of things. What keeps you going, Bill? Because I see through your bio and knowing you what the write-ups you did, what keeps you going on volunteering?
Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, I'll never forget when I was home on leave in September of 1972. I was on Main Street in Visalia, and the sun was setting. And I suddenly realized, remember, brothers, for some of us, when the sun would set, that's when you had to get pretty alert. And it was the first time I saw a sunset without fear. I always remember that. And so, for me, it's a sense of profound gratitude to do whatever I can to help this generation of veterans. Because there's four generations of veterans in America. Of course, there's the World War II generation. They're the greatest generation. The Americans that kept America, America. Then there's the Korean War and the Cold War veterans who drew that line at the 38th parallel and kept America from being in a hot war. Then the other veteran generation that we serve that comes often as guardians is what I call the most patriotic generation of Americans. Those of our young Afghanistan, Iraqi, Desert Storm veterans that volunteer, and with that sense of service still come as guardians. But there's another generation of Americans that I call the most faithful generation of Americans, and I always say they will always be known as that, and that's my Vietnam era and Vietnam vets, because they were faithful to America when America was not faithful to them in return. And that sense, I think, of affirming that at that time when we were all much younger men, serving in an uncertain mission in uncertain times with a nation at the time and a population that was not grateful to us, I think that motivates me to make sure my brothers understand that America has caught up with us and America loves us.
Bill, we want you to stick around. We're almost toward the end of the program now, and right after you is going to be the firing squad. What we want to do is give you some recognition. Can we have our Roxanne Sperna recognition of Bill Goodrow from the state senator's office, and Eddie Valero from 4th District Supervisor to recognize and give him whatever you wish to give him. And do you need a mic to say anything? We're doing this just for you.
Oh, man.
Bill Goudreau served his time with the U.S. Army during Vietnam, and I am told, like many, he paid a price for serving. But now, more than half a century after the end of the Vietnam conflict, Goudreau has continued to devote his time and energy to organize, to raise funds, to host Vietnam veterans from this area who wish to participate in honoring flights back to Washington, D.C. to see the Vietnam War Memorial, a massive wall that lists the names of more than 58,000 servicemen, and women who lost their lives during the Vietnam War. Virgil has worked very hard and given Vietnam veterans the opportunity to see the wall and other attractions offered in the nation's capital. I wish to join with host 643 members to show my utmost respect today to Bill Goudreau. Signed, Senator Melissa Hurtado, 16th District.